bullying story. Here we are at the top of the tour. Where's the animal? Here he is. Absolutely knackered. So bullying. I think where I'll leave it right here is, what have you done about it? And I say that lovingly. Bullying that you've witnessed, bullying where you've bullied, bullying where you've been bullied. What have you done about it? I'll tell you the story. However, I find that I'm absolutely knackered having walked up this hill. And I think going through the bullying process, which isn't my first flipping rodeo, by the way. However, it's just been hideous. So I think what I'm going to do is send you love, ask you what you have done. You could pop in the chat. What have you done about bullying? There will have been witnesses, I imagine. There will have been people who tried to shut it down, who said it didn't happen, who didn't want to get involved, who didn't like the conflict and the drama, who had a hand in the victim being a victim. And again, when we're holding resentment of sorts, that means we're in a victim position. Sorry, my name's Poppy, if we haven't met. Hello. However, what's more damaging, in my opinion, is people who facilitate bullying. So an example from the story I'll tell you is, when I was dealing with something, I went into the shop where it happened, and one of the ladies who works in the shop said, not only, because I was asking the name of the person, she said not only has she witnessed him be aggressive, that she's actually called the police on him herself. A woman that works in the shop where this man was just outrageous to me, security guard. She's called the police. What happened to that? I'd like to know. Because my point here is, no, the behaviours that are hurtful, damaging, traumatizing, illegal, harassment in this case, and a violation of the Equality Act. And whilst, I said to the guy that I was talking to about it, I have to put my foot down here, apart from the fact it's not okay in any way. Had I have been someone who doesn't, do well with conflict, I was shaking walking past the shop 2 days later. And I'm pretty tough broad, and I deal with bullshit for a living, not from clients, because they're beautiful and amazing. However, life, there's a lot of beauty, clearly. A lot of beautiful people. However, there's a lot of pain. And gone are the times, in my opinion, where we have the luxury to be able to sit back and point fingers. For me, the important piece here is what I do about this to follow through. I'll tell you the story, not now, when I get back. To follow through so that it's not half-arsing it. Because I see people do that all the time, and I absolutely understand it, that we're lazy, that we've got no courage, no integrity, for the most part, people. And the way we know that is, if and when there are things that upset and hurt you, do you deal with them directly, without the reactivity and without the blame and without unless you change blah, blah, blah? Do you deal with it in terms of this, that and the other has happened? This, that and the other is the lesson and the blessing. What we've learned, what's the core message, what's the emotion? Can we be with the emotion, be okay with the emotion? And when I say okay, is welcome it. Regulate, to feel the feelings we're having, to contain them, not suppress them, to hold them, to make a space for what we're feeling and what the message is in the feeling. So in mine was, this is not okay, what's happened? What do I get to do with the message? Suppress it, oppress it, manipulate myself, gaslight myself, be gaslit, or actually do something about it? And not just write to the store with what had happened and position them to say, there's certain things legally you get to follow through on this. This is hurtful and it's not okay. I also called to back it up and had further abuse on the phone. And I went back into the store 2 days later today and had a word with the staff and asked them to get the CCTV footage and I will keep following it up until they do what I've asked them to do, which is to have a word with the staff member, to look at training for staff, to look at supporting staff. And now that I've heard from a member of staff that this man is such a bully that she's had to call the authorities when he's at work, how he's behaved with a customer or customers, I don't know the story. She's had to, as someone employed, witnessing him doing security, to the point that she felt it was such harassment that she had to phone the police. And this has happened to me. However, it didn't stop there, did it? So it gets to stop. My question for you is, again, how are you? Do you identify as a victim, a hero, the bully, the villain? How do you identify? Because for me, it's all of those things, me. He was a definite villain and not a well man, clearly, from his behaviour. However, we've got witnesses all over the place here. There were witnesses at the time. There were witnesses outside of the shop. There are witnesses today. There are witnesses all over the world. We are witness to behaviours, our own behaviours and the behaviours of others. What are we doing about it? Because this doesn't get to happen. And there's another big wave coming where we will all be affected en masse again by bullying and oppression. And my question will be, where are you going to be when that happens? Will you have your back? Will you have mine? I'll have yours, regardless as to what you do, how you treat me, what you say, and so on. When a no is a no, a boundary is a boundary, and we get to put our foot down. Can you imagine? Well, I imagine you have been bullied and or bullied. Who came to your aid? Do you come to your aid? Because ultimately that's what we need to do in this life, is we get to understand what is okay and what is not okay. We get to have a look at our behaviour and make agreements with ourselves about our behaviour, boundaries with ourselves, and then we make movements in the direction we would like to go, aligned, integrous movements, courageous movements to do the right thing for us. And what other people do is largely irrelevant, to be honest. It's the next thing, is the point. I could shut up and put up. However, I know that makes people very, very ill. Indeed, it kills people. The thing is, there are witnesses everywhere, so this is still going on. And what will be the case is people witness things and do nothing, or they don't do enough. And you're going to know if you've witnessed something and if you've done enough. And if you haven't, there are people like you and me who are being victims unnecessarily. And it happens transgenerationally in families all the time. I mean, imagine the worst kind of torture and pain and overwhelm and abuse. I see that all the time as a therapist. And most of it could be, what's that word? Most of it wouldn't happen if the people, the parents who've had it happen to them, learn how to speak directly and taught their kids how to be direct, gracious, assertive, what's a yes, what's a no. However, we're so stacked, all of us, and afraid to talk into the important things because we don't want the conflict, we don't want to look bad, and we're full of ego and fear. And we're being groomed all the time by a culture who is cashing in on the fact that you will take a drug instead. Watch TV, watch somebody, whatever, sucking someone off on flipping TV, basically. Life is a trigger warning, love. The minute we come out of the womb, that's traumatic. The stuff we do in our lives to suppress, oppress, self-censor. And because of that culture, I was abused the other day, desperately, to the point that as a 30-year-old woman who deals with conflict for a living, I'm walking, shaking like this. I was in fear of my life. And there were witnesses everywhere and nobody stepped in. And that is, again, that's happened many times, and that I get it. And that's why I can be me, and I understand why people are afraid. It's my choice to speak truth to power and bullshit. However, it's still very sad, and I would love it if more people were prepared to do the right thing. And what the right thing is, in my opinion, is if you see someone being bullied, you fucking do something. You get your phone out at the very least. And of course we can record. It's an inalienable right to be safe in the world. You can record wherever you go. And frankly, in this day and age, we get to expect that. If you feel that a criminal offence could take place, and if it's an officer, anybody, you have a right to record. That's the same in the courtroom. And please don't let anybody tell you otherwise. If you feel unsafe, or if you feel, actually, I would feel better with a witness here. This is the thing. There are witnesses everywhere, and they do very, very little because of our fear. So, it's where I'm at with it at the moment. It won't be the last time, I know. However, it gets to be a time where something happens that's not okay, and I get to decide, what am I going to do about it? Between me, and then what am I going to do in order to effect change where someone may be listening? So I'd ask you, are you witnessing some things and you're not saying anything? And if that's the case, I urge you, for me, for everybody else, and for the victims that will come because you don't say anything, I would ask you to be very gentle with yourself, to find someone that you feel safe with, or a number of people you feel safe with, to document everything, to write it down, to email, to follow it up, to do voice notes. I have a Dropbox file with voice notes, with screenshots, with all kinds of stuff. And as I spoke to the shop, the manager, again, I'll do the next video and say the story, I said I'm recording for my reference as I spoke to him to follow it up. I don't need anybody's permission. I'm not a child. We do get to be gracious about it, in my opinion, to a point. However, we're all human at the end of the day. Keep a paper trail, because people often will look to bury it because it's inconvenient truths that unfortunately get attacked, along with inconvenient behaviours. When does it stop, my love? When? And if it's not you and I that are doing the stopping, who the fuck ever will? Because no, we don't get to sit back and say, I'm a victim and nobody helped me. It's the culture that's sick and twisted. And we become part of it when en masse we do things that are cowardly at best. So, I imagine you've been hurt, my love, too. And I send you my love. Let's make a dent in this thing, please. No gets to mean no. And if you'd like my program, Boundaries, Thrive Boundaries Mastery, you've got 90-day access. It used to be nearly £300, now it is. You pick your fee, depending on what you feel you can invest currently. Let's start doing the right thing, please. Otherwise, nothing changes and more victims happen unnecessarily. So.